hand. Rise up and take it command. We they see them, we know they blind.
One day our Niger go good, and one of the reasons why our Niger is not good is because there is so much corruption. And we've been talking about the fight against corruption forever. How well are we doing in this fight? Last week, it was reported that the chairman of the EFCC, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ola Olukoyede, said that Nigerians condemn corruption, yet rally behind corrupt leaders when they are being prosecuted. Well, if he's my brother, if he's my uncle, if he's my cousin, I'm likely to rally around him. Abi? Well, the chairman...
Some people also say that it takes a thief to know a thief.
It takes a thief to know a thief.
In fact, there's a Yoruba proverb that it is only a thief that can trace the path of another thief on the rock.
I've heard that
You know what that means?
Yes, you don't leave footprints on a rock. But if you are a thief and you are following a thief, you will know exactly where to put your footsteps on the rock.
How you know how the thief waka? In fact, we had someone come on air before the elections. I think it was I'm not sure which one. He said, look, the best kind of president we should have is someone who has been accused of corruption. He said, why? He said, hey, that person knows how it is done.
So he will know how to catch the ones who are doing it. Okay, now let's discuss this with a panel of legal minds, both of them. One is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Dakpo Akin-Osun. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you again. And the other is our old friend who ran away, but thankfully he's back now, Mr. John Oloyede.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
He's a he.
I'm a he.
Not and
Proudly so.
Not His Excellency.
Not His Excellency.
No, not His Excellency.
Not yet.
Yes. So, Mr. Akin-Osun, this our fight has been going on forever. How well do you think we're doing in this fight?
I think the fight has been on a little while before I was born.
Wow.
And we don't seem to have been able to conquer it successfully. Because every opportunity, everyone that comes on board sees it as my own turn. This is our opportunity. Unfortunately, the morals around it or our ethics also seem to be dropping. People no longer find it difficult to know the difference between what is right and what is wrong. Such that when you get the opportunity to dip into public, and not only public tea, let us be honest, even in the private sector, you employ people and all they're looking at is how to make a quick extra bucks off you. So while we condemn it in public space, are we faring much better in the private sector as well?
We'll come to that, sir. And it's a very, very important one because to a good number of times, public sector officials are drawn from the private sector because of how well or not they have done. Well, let me ask you, Mr. Oloyede, the instruments of state to fight corruption have also come under intense pressure. I was telling Alero the other time, and there are, even within the anti-corruption agencies, I think it was the EFCC chairman at some point that said, look, we've had to terminate the appointments of some of our men because they were also found wanting in certain regard. If the instrument of fighting corruption is corrupted, is the war on?
Well, you want me to say it's a non-starter really, because it's been very sad that
like the other Silk said, this war on corruption started probably before I was born too. I mean, we've read here and there the politicians of yore, those who held sway in the big parties of that time, they had to face serious cases in court. Some were convicted and all that. And over time, during the military era, the different ones in power, they started what they call, you remember, war against indiscipline, kick against indiscipline. All those were attempts at curtailing corruption in public and private sector. Now, unfortunately, you cannot give what you don't have. The Nigerian society is such that we attract Nigerians into all these institutions. In trying to institutionalize the anti-corruption war, the pool of human resource available are Nigerians like you and I. And as has been said this morning, is there anybody above, I mean, in terms of moral standards, can we really say we have a pool from where we can bring in angels who would actually face this battle without any form of restraint? And that is the problem. I mean, recently you heard of some EFCC officials stealing, is it money exhibits, what they called exhibits, I think it was dollars. It was stolen. The gravest injustice to the justice system is to steal exhibits meant to prove the guilt of somebody to be charged. So if internally the people that are there are like Nigerians like you and I, can we really expect, I mean, what kind of training, what kind of upbringing have they had that is different from the ones that the politicians have? One of the things that people talk about is you can only have the kind of leadership that you deserve. In Nigeria today, the political class is made up of people who come from amongst us. They're just waiting for their time. When it is their turn, they then.
But what do you think is responsible for that? Because one would expect that before you apply for that job, it's the people's interest that should be on the mind. Where did it come from? I know it is human to want what you want first before anyone else, but let's first of all talk about where do you think it started from?
Now let me share a personal discussion I had with somebody who applied to join the Nigerian police. And I said, why police of all things? And he told me that, well, he wants to seize an opportunity to make money. I mean, this is somebody known. I said, make money how from police? What kind of money are you? You are going to be on salary. Egmont, all those things that are going on. I want to be a part of it. That is the police, law enforcement agent. Now, a lot of officers of EFCC, they come from the Nigerian police. A lot of people are recruited from outside. Now, they are young people. They see people who make money fraudulently without consequences. Now, they go in there. One of the major reasons why EFCC, cannot sustain most of the charges is not because the judge is not ready to dispense justice. It's not because the evidence is not there. But like in the case of there was a judge in one of these, I think, Delta State, where a former governor had to build a court premises where he will be tried. Now, and 170 charges were profiled against him, and none could be sustained. The case, the whole charge sheet was dismissed in limine because it could not be sustained. It was not because there was no evidence, because about 2 years later, the same person who absconded from Nigeria because of the hula baloo generated, he went to Dubai, and then the EFCC, when EFCC was EFCC, worked with the UK government, and in less than 1 year, he was convicted, right, of virtually the same. I mean, or virtually. But in Nigeria economic government, what happened? On channels, there was a program I featured on, and it was discovered that it wasn't because the judge was corrupt, but it's garbage in, garbage out. The legal officer who drafted the charge sheet, who has been corrected, who dipped his palm in the jar. It's so easy for somebody drafting charges to deliberately omit very fundamental points that should be in the charge. And then when you present it to the judge, and the judge looks at it that this charge as crafted cannot be sustained. It was thrown out. So it's garbage in, garbage out. So a lot of the problem comes from the staffing.
Mr. Koshu, again, back to history. Yeah, corruption has been on since way before both of you were born.
Exactly. And you too.
What will I now see?
Well, you're much older than we are.
I remember, and I'm still looking for that passage, a speech delivered by Chief Obafemi Awolowo. It was in the UK, talking to Nigerian students in 1959. And he was saying in that speech, in that address to Nigerian students, that look, your politicians prefer imported stuff in Nigeria. Not in the UK, in Nigeria, that they preferred imported stuff. So if we are looking for history, we should probably begin from values. What do you think?
Yeah, and that is why I said we need to go back to the foundations. Because first of all, as I think someone mentioned earlier, when we were younger and you are going to school, your parents will tell you, remember the child of who you are. Don't go and embarrass our name outside. Today, you find parents who are arranging scores for their children, writing JAMB exams and paying bribes for their children to go forward in school. Can that kind of parent tell the child, remember the child of who you are? If the ethics are broken down from the home front, we have a fundamental challenge. I went to a Catholic secondary school. They taught what was called moral instructions then, in which it was instilled in us the sense of what is right and what is wrong. Today, it has been cancelled from curricula of many schools. So until the foundation is set right, we cannot build on nothing, like the lawyers say.
On that same issue, sir, some of the politicians who are in leadership today went through moral instruction.
Yes, so that takes us to the next level, where there's no consequence for bad behavior. They will behave badly.
Okay.
How do you enforce judgments? How do you enforce that a man who steals ultimately goes to prison? John spoke about drafting of charges. Sometimes the lawyers who are drafting these charges are under pressure for time. They have seen this man, he has committed a crime. They're trying to get the drafts and the charges right. But the corrupt person is going to employ the best lawyers to come and defend him. Sure. These lawyers are going to raise every technical objection and defense to getting justice. Where they see that it is a watertight case, they will delay and hope that either the judge goes or the administration goes or something changes. And until we begin to sanction ourselves, some judges make some orders that are outrageous, but a lawyer drafted the judge will not make an order out of the blues. A lawyer has taken an application before him by whatever means. I know the NBA is trying to discipline erring lawyers, but I don't think we're looking deep enough into dealing with those issues that bring about the bad judgment. The delays in justice are often caused by lawyers as well.
Yes.
A lot of it, the laws are there, and no matter how good the laws are, until it is properly enforced, moral upbringing, ethics, consequence for bad behavior are things that we need to look at. Welfare of also these guys who are implementing. The people, as I said, in the anti-corruption agencies are not ghosts. They come from the society. They face the same pressures we face. So as inflation is affecting everybody, are they adjusting their income to levels that bribes remain uninteresting to them? But if they have to pay school fees of 1 million and they cannot find it when they need it, and there's this guy who is charged and is putting them under pressure using, I know of a judge who said to me when she was going to write a judgment on a matter that the other side got the king of her husband's village to come and speak to her at home about getting this judgment right. When the king of your husband's village comes to meet you at home, it's going to, if you don't listen to your husband,
hands become tight.
So it becomes tight. And of course, in that situation, she was able to tell me because she did what was right. But it caused problem between herself and her husband. But he was choosing what is right and what is wrong. So how many of us are able to stay the course is the most important thing. Until we get to that level where we are satisfied with what we have.
Mr. Loyede,
Yes.
let us consider this. He has spoken about values. Then there is also the Nigerian system. How do we expect any human being in today's Nigeria to survive on 70,000 naira a month? 1. 2, people work for 35 years or whatever number of years. They do not get their pensions for years and years to come. Even when they do, the pensions are a pittance, not enough to make them survive the conditions of the Nigeria in which they find themselves at that particular time. So, my question therefore is our system not skewed to encourage corruption when people are not taken care of? When a person goes to pay school fees for his 4 generations ahead because he foresees that inflation would have eaten so much into the system, should the government not be putting things in place to make sure that even when you retire, you earn enough to make a living or to live a life and not be dependent on the children or on stolen funds?
Very good question. Because this issue arose from a discussion I had yesterday with somebody who works at the Court of Appeal. And I was asking about a matter I'm involved in. And I said, look, this matter has been hanging for so long. He said, Oga, please, I'm not in the mood to discuss anybody's case because we have not been paid the January salary.
Oh dear.
And I said, you have not been paid your January salary. He said, nobody has been paid at the Court of Appeal. Oh, what's the reason? Yes, they've not received the allocation for the payment. They are trying to reconcile the backlog, some arrears we are outstanding, carry over from last year. And they've been agitating that, we should be paid these arrears and all that. And there's no money to pay it. And I said, so what's going on? He said, well, they've served some notice and that 1 week more they will go on strike. And I had to tell her that, you see, the problem with the Nigerian society is this strike you people are proposing is not going to hold, because the leadership of the JUSUM, your union, a day or the night before the strike is supposed to start, will call it off. And you know why. Now, and I told them, I said, the political class cannot function either positively or negatively. I mean, they can't positively or negatively impact the Nigerian society without the support of the court system. Because most of the things they get away with, they find a way to distill it through the court system. All sorts of applications are filed to prevent people from going on strike, to prevent people from agitating and all that. And there's a way the court allows it to pass through. And I said, if the court workers can actually stay off work for 1 month, the political class will bow. Because without it, I mean, so many lawyers now, most of the cases that get heard that are decided, they are political cases. A lot of other cases are hanging. They can't get her. So now that is to underscore the point I want to make, that the Nigerian system is corruption prone. Everything about it. How can you work and not get paid?
Yeah.
I'm not even talking of those who have retired now. Now, I have a very good friend, my classmate Ujumu. His father was a top-ranking civil servant, public servant, years back when we were children.
Yeah.
And he had very glowing memories about, life as the son of a senior civil servant. They would go home, career civil servant, life was good. You drive either your Volkswagen or your Peugeot, you are a big man. You lived in Ikoyi, things were okay. Yeah. Now, the beginning of the Nigerian problem, corruption, how the civil service became the flagship of corruption in Nigeria, was when, he said, according to him, and I agree with him, was when the military came in, and suddenly there was a sweeping, they sacked everybody. Yeah. Now, these people were not prepared for life. They were still eligible by the civil service rules to be in service. Then they all got sacked. And after they got sacked, a lot of them died. Because they did not prepare for it. There was nothing they kept, aside yeah. for that period. And then those that were left decided, without having a meeting, that no, this cannot happen to us.
If they're going to sack me like this,
I must be ready. And then they decided that, and today, when the politicians come on board, there is nothing they can do without the collusion of civil servants.
And that, no, it's not just civil servants. Festus Akimboyewa is saying, no large-scale corruption, this one is from X, no large-scale corruption can succeed without the involvement of bankers, lawyers, accountants, estate agents,
lawyers,
and black market currency traders. Decisive and speedy trial and punishment of those involved in corruption and other heinous financial crime will go a long way in checking the menace. Go on.
I don't know the bias of the person, but he omitted religious institutions.
Okay.
Why that? Yes, okay. We all know what's going on.
But there's something he said, and I'll bring that to you, Mr. Kyoshum. Emmanuel Daudu wrote in from Ikeja, says, the propensity for corruption in Nigeria is fueled by a lack of punitive punishment, something you said earlier, that would act as deterrents to would-be corrupt officials. Maybe we should learn from the Chinese on how to frontally fight corruption. I don't know how the Chinese do. Do you know how the Chinese
I heard the rumor
about the death penalty, right? I heard it too.
I heard that rumor.
Yes, I heard it.
And how effective the death penalty is or will be is also very subjective.
Let's even try whether it succeeded under the military, because during the military era, if you are caught as an armed robber, Yoruba say they put your back to the
lagoon,
to the drum.
Okay,
put your back to the
Okay, yes, that's Agba.
That's the drum. Put your barrel. Put the back to the barrel. Tie him. It was execution. Did it work at the time?
Well, it had its own value, and we cannot dispense of it, because it created a fear. The embarrassment to the families that were involved in seeing your child tied to the stake had its own values. And even in China, where it operates, you cannot, and it's not only China, there are a few other countries that do the death penalty
as well.
It is not totally worthless, but of course, in a system where the whole value chain of the train is a bit corrupted, you find wrong people being sentenced. There was the case of the drug peddlers who are convicted and executed in Nigeria. I think that was under Babangida. The story still remains that some of them claim to have been innocent. So you always find wrong people killed sometimes. And until you have a judicial system that works well, then it may be difficult to get it effectively. I also have my own argument about giving life sentences to people who have stolen and will be fed on government money for the rest of their lives. Why don't you just kill them and save government money? Why use my taxpayers' money to continue to maintain them and let them corrupt other people who come into prison? So there's no one size, one cap fits all. But we must begin to do the right things first. We start from paying the right fees for the right job. If you pay peanuts, you will get monkeys. If you pretend to pay people a living wage, they will also pretend to come to work because they cannot work and exist on that level. So they have to find alternative means. But as happened in Lagos State some years ago, I know a judge who retired. When he was in service, he was living in Ikoyi, official accommodation. When he retired, he moved to a boys' quarters of a friend in Folago.
Wow.
Because he had no home of his own. So when there's no security, as has been mentioned, your pension is not sure to come. And I wonder about those guys in the pension office. Do they forget that they would also one day retire and face the same issues? But that is why they steal so much and try and impoverish every other person. But until we have a situation where you are sure that even after I retire, I will live a reasonable life if I have worked diligently, you would always have this issue.
Well, you have some mails to look at. This one is from...
Do we have any more?
Yes, this one is from Egbele Amos Tom, who says, the logicality and evidentiality of the law, you guys will understand this because I have no idea, is the tripod on which justice is laid. The law and justice does not rely on emotionalism, nor the perception of the people. That is probably more of the reasons we tend to think the war against corruption can never be won. Do you agree with him?
I mean, Nigeria now, in perspective, I don't really agree with that. What she's trying to say is that, well, the way you prove an offense in court is not the same way we talk about it in beer parlors. That, okay, the average Nigerian will say, oh, see, he's a thief, that one is a thief. Everybody is a thief. But until you can discharge the evidential burden placed on you by law that that person is actually a thief, then there is nothing to it. But you see, the Nigerian person, the perception of ICPC, EFCC, Code of Conduct Bureau, and all that, you see, belies what she is saying about logicality. You see a situation, one of the reasons, what lawyers have over the average Nigerian on the street is that we practice our profession knowing full well in advance that, look, there is some form of certainty in the law. If 1 + 1, if you bring 1 + 1, it's supposed to be 2. It's never going to be 3 in court. Now, what we work with is called judicial precedents. There are a lot of decisions that have been given by the courts. And these decisions, they should guide a lawyer. They should guide the FCC lawyers. They should guide everybody in presenting their respective cases in court. But there are situations where Nigerian courts, lately, I mean, when I started practice, it was over 30 years ago, you were almost certain from your chambers, I say this every day, of the case you are going to win and the case you are going to lose. So you don't just present cases. But these days, you have a situation where cases are presented, and I mean, let's talk about EFCC since we're talking about corruption. You have situations where in this country, cases have been presented, they are ongoing, either EFCC or ICPC. And then a new minister, Attorney General of the Federation, comes in. Because he has the power of the noli, he comes in and he says, I'm entering a noli prosequi, meaning I'm stopping the progress of this matter. Now, somebody else had been charged with the same offense, based on the same set, almost the same set of facts, and he is convicted. I mean, and then this particular one, the man at the topmost level of the judicial system said, no, stop prosecution. And that's probably because, and then the man comes out and he joins the party in power. Now, there's no logicality to that. There is corruption. And that's what Nigerians see every day. And that's why they have trust issues dealing with these anti-corruption agencies. It's a big problem. There should be some form of certainty. When you bring A on the same set of facts and you convict him, B should be convicted. But politically exposed persons, they get away with blue murder.
Yes.
And that's what Nigerians complain about.
Okay.
Well, Etubom Essien says, kudos to your panel on fight against corruption. I should remind you, though, that applicants for employment into EFCC, into the police, into customs, and so on, pay heavily to be employed. Like politicians, what would stop them from corruptly enriching themselves?
Good question.
Well, I cannot speak for all the agencies, but I know that it will be unfair to paint all of them and say they all are bribed to get employment there. I know of EFCC that you have to be a certain age, first of all, to be employed. They take young people, fresh minds who can be trained and adequately modified or indoctrinated from the time they're young. And anyway, once someone gets into a system, and you can see a lot of money moving hands. I was involved in a governorship tussle at a time, and the aspirant called me and said, I don't have money to pay your fees now, but when I become governor, I will be able to pay everything. What you are fighting for now is the emancipation of our people. Once you fight this battle, so I said, wait a minute. What you're saying is that when you don't have the money to pay my fees now, but when you become governor, you will use government money to pay my fees. At that point, we had a disagreement. But it took a little discussion in our office because some of us did not understand why you would say no. What we're doing is that we're investing in this man. I say, no, we're not investing in this man. This man is planning to go into government to steal and use that money. We're his personal lawyers. We're not government lawyers. So he cannot be using government money to pay us for his personal
What do you care
case.
where the money comes from?
That was the problem we had in the office then. And that was why I said about the way some of these ethics are taught. Some just did not understand that, no, he's paying us is when he's able to pay.
Well, you know, my apologies, sir. Still on this same matter. I mean, you can't speak for all the lawyers, all the agencies. But perception, in some sense, is reality for some people. That is why I think is it Amnesty International, they're not checking Nigeria's corruption index. They're checking corruption perception index. I'll give you an instance. Just yesterday, someone was speaking with me and he was saying, look, that he knows of some people, that some agency, let me not mention any particular, some anti-corruption agency in this country, in a particular state, say, the head of the agency in the state needed some money, and so tell your guy to go and bring some money. Now, why is that coming up? Because they have a case against that particular individual or organization that has not been finalized. There is no strong case, but there is a threat, and they want to leverage that threat. If indeed it is true that that state agent sends a decoy or someone to go ask for such things, you can't blame this gentleman for saying what he said. It's as far as they're concerned, it is perception. There are those who would rather jump into the hands of a thief or a robber than go to the police. That is the case of some people in, I think, somewhere in the north. They would rather have these, is it Talakawas or what they called them at the time? Some terrorist organization, that they would rather have these people protect them than official security agencies. So these things are our realities. Unfortunate as they are our realities.
Yeah. And you cannot argue with the reality or even the perception, which took me first of all to foundations when I started. I remember when I graduated from university, I wanted to join the customs because I believed that all my father's friends and contemporaries then who worked in customs were rich men. So I wanted to join customs. I liked the uniformed forces, but among the uniformed forces, customs was attractive because they were also rich. And my father said to me, no, you cannot go and join them. I said, why? He said, if you don't become corrupt, you'll be an obstruction to people who are corrupt. That if you can't beat them, they will force you to join them. I was sad, but that was the reason he gave then that I could not join. And from then I realized that you have to either be different from them or separate yourself. If this perception is real, and the truth is that people would always make those allusions, and there's truth in it. I'm not saying there's no truth in it, but those who are also paying for it, do they not have a part to blame? It's okay if there's a collector, if there's nobody who's willing to pay, it won't happen.
There'll be no taker.
I was one of those people who was unwilling to pay the price to join the customs at that time. But if there are people who are even willing to put down money to join so that they can recoup their investment later,
yes,
it is because there's no sanction or no punishment for bad behavior. But if you cannot explain the source of your wealth, and you know that the agencies will catch up with you and you will go to jail, then people will not be paying to go to join those organizations.
Mr. Loyede,
yes.
We are in an age of technology. Shouldn't technology be helping us in this fight? And shouldn't it have become more difficult for people to just dip their hand in the till and just take whatever they want? I mean, look at the case of the accountant general who was reported to have stolen 189 billion naira. In today's world, where there's computers to take care of everything, how are they still able to do it?
Well, sadly,
it is a computer.
Everything Nigerian, we have what we call Nigerian factor. In every situation, this comes into play. You got it right to the extent that when we have NIN, BVN, we have all these things that they told us will prevent corrupt practices, will secure our borders, will prevent these Boko Haram people, that if you have all these things in place. And yet, you have a situation where kidnappers, they still get monies transferred through technology. The monies go round and round, and they even take pictures ultimately when they get the cash.
Yes.
And they throw it at us. They throw it in our faces to see. That is the Nigerian factor. In courts, instead of relying on forensic auditing, you have a situation where people, the EFCC, I'm talking of EFCC, they complain about funding, but I know there are donor agencies that support their business. And you have a situation in court, like the Learned Silk said, you have the EFCC comes to court with lawyers, and the lawyers are coming with bag loads of papers to prove a particular case. All that you need to prove the case is forensics. Somebody just comes in, brings his laptop, puts it on the screen to show the movement of money all over the world. When you push $1 million from Nigeria, you can actually know where it ends up in.
Yeah.
And the EFCC lawyer in court will have to come and bring start, and by the time they bring, there is no way. It's so easy. There's no way you can bring all those bus loads of papers that a very brilliant, smart, well-paid lawyer will not find errors on some pages. Page 1 will contradict page 10 because it's manually done. But these are things that are on computers here and there, so long as it passes through the banks, But unfortunately in Nigeria, the system, it's wired to aid corruption. And don't forget that, you see, the people that are involved in this high caliber corruption, they are not, they have the funds. They can pay anybody. They can compromise any systems.
They say that everyone has a price.
There's always a price tag.
Yeah.
So I mean so a lot of times they blame judges for, oh, this judge, see what you wrote is so porous and all that. I'm not defending anybody. But many a time, some of us in that industry, you will see what a judge has written. And I mean, like the one about 170 charges being struck out in limine. And I spoke to a judge who told me that, oh, you went on channels and you were castigating the judge. The judge called me, another judge, and said, you were castigating this judge. Do you know what that judge went through? Have you read the charge sheet? Have you looked at it? And I said, well, I have not seen it. And I came back on channels to tell the Nigerians that, look, I'm sorry. By the time I read the charge sheet, I mean, it's shocking.
So even you would have ruled the same way.
Nothing to hold on to.
I will even do worse than the judge. Because it was totally bad. So think of it, that technology is there to aid us. But really, does EFCC, ICPC, do they have the kind of technology to contend with people who have so much money?
Well, the technology exists.
Yes.
Whether or not they use it is another thing. But let me ask you, okay, you want to read the mail?
Yes. This one is from Olani from Ijesha Tedo. Corruption in Nigeria is something I doubt will ever stop because our society has legalized it indirectly. In our churches and mosques today, you will be treated as VIP once you are rich.
Good.
In the family, you become Olori Ebi once you are rich. Even in the family of your spouse. Among friends, you are nobody once you are not rich. Your wife's heart belongs to someone else once you are unable to provide her needs. No one, including our so-called men of God, cares how you get your money before you are accorded with deacon or sheikh. This is why people go to any length to ensure that they are recognized in the society. Also, this country gives people the impression that if you choose to be conscientious and godly, you may end up dying poor.
I had no idea this mail was there. And I was going to ask you about religious leaders. We swear by the Quran I swear by the Bible when I take office. You swear in court, everything you're going to be saying is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. And we pledge allegiance to God. Our national anthem ends with the second stanza or the third stanza of the national anthem is "O God of creation." Our national pledge ends with "So help me God." Yet there is corruption.
God helps us to the limit that we're determined to help ourselves. And speaking sincerely, I think the number one person, the person at the helm of affairs determines what goes through the system. If the body language from the top says we will not tolerate this, and they see it going down, it will cascade down very quickly. And I'll give two instances. When Buhari was coming into power, everybody believed that Buhari is a no-nonsense man and will not tolerate. But when they started seeing cases of abuse that was not decisively dealt with, people began to wonder that is this what we asked for? But on the other hand, when Osinbajo was acting president for a period, and it took a decisive step in dealing with the attack on the legislature at that time, everybody wondered what manner of man is this. And you could see everybody shaping up and shipping out and being careful to the point that he never got a chance again to act by whatever means he was done. So what you will find is that if the man at the top says we won't have none of this, everybody will fall in line.
Yeah.
So whether your family celebrates you and you're rich or not, if your family also knows that you'll be shamed for being a thief, the same family will be the ones to turn around against you.
Well, you know, the reason I'm asking that question, I apologize for butting in, Mr. Akinji, is everyone sits in front of a clergy, listens to a message. In fact, I can't count the number of times that certain clergymen have quote-unquote embarrassed public officials sitting right there in front of them and told them stuff. And it would look like, as soon as they lead the place to your tent of Israel.
Well, sometimes it also depends on their perception of that clergyman. The same clergyman who is abusing you publicly will be happy to receive your gifts. But in a situation where the clergy have said, we will not receive your gifts.
Yes.
And the truth is, the gospel also needs money to be funded. And until we get to that point where people are willing to say, I think it speaks a lot of Yoruba. It says "Owo ni keke," something like that. In your language, that's your language. So you find that.
Okay, Mr. Victor Imoisili says, nothing aids corruption in Nigeria like selective application of the laws of the land. The judiciary and major institutions in Nigeria work only for the rich and politically exposed persons. If we're serious about fighting corruption, our law must apply equally to everyone, regardless of their social status. Your comments, because lawyers are mentioned in this particular mail.
Yeah, I'll comment on that. Now, rule of law. That person has talked specifically about rule of law, and that's a major problem. Something happened in Lagos recently, and it was all over the news that the First Lady prevented the arrest of this man that was impeached or removed in Lagos State. And it was all over the news that, so person was the one who told the FCC, don't touch this person. Now, whether it is true or false, we don't know. But nobody has come out to debunk that particular statement. Now, that is perception. I mean, if the man had a case to answer, why should somebody help to prevent his arrest? That's one. Now, rule of law. You have a situation, I had a discussion with a very close friend this week too. We're talking about, the Lions knows how difficult it is to attain silk. It's not an easy thing to become a senior advocate of Nigeria. And we're talking about it. And the person called me that he was asking me, Mr. Already, I hope you have submitted your application. I said, I'm not qualified. I don't have enough cases, Supreme Court cases, because my cases have not been heard. I have a case of 2014 that has not been heard till now, 11 years, pending. And he said, Mr. Already, you can't sit down in Lagos and expect that your cases will be heard. That this is how it's done. That you have an appellant, and then there are 5 respondents. And then he was teaching me this. I didn't know it. He's on the bench. He was my junior. He said the 5 respondents, the person who is supposed to lead, instead of appearing for the 5 respondents, would then sell the briefs tell you other lawyers to write for the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 5th respondents, so that they too would appear on record to have appeared in that case, just so as they will have enough cases heard to qualify to be a senior advocate of Nigeria. Now, what level? I have my senior who is dead now. We buried him 2 weeks ago. He refused to apply, and I said, "Well, God, why? You?" He said, "You don't apply for honor." And he said, "What happened? That this rule about having this number of cases at the High Court, Court of Appeal, Supreme Court, what happened to why don't you look at lawyers who are so good as trial lawyers? They are so good that when they present their cases, they never lose. Because from their chambers, they don't accept cases that are bad. They first of all take a case that is good, apply the law, and get the judgment. And there are such lawyers, after winning in court, the lawyer on the other side or the other party does not think of appealing. Such lawyers will never have appeal court cases. And yet you say, no, you cannot be saved. Now, I have spoken about this just to tell you that the judicial system, we need a lot of reform, because it is about garbage in, garbage out.
At the end of the day, it's you guys have to sit down around the round table,
we are
a flat table or whatever. But there's this message also from Ayode Shorinka from Abeokuta, who says, I appreciate your guests in the house. Thank you. How do we address what played out some time ago where an official who embezzled pension funds was prosecuted under the penal code with meager punishment as against the criminal code with a more severe punishment by the prosecuting team, and the man paid the fine from the boot of his car?
Sure.
It took the public outcry for the anti-corruption agency to appeal the case and get a more severe punishment at the appeal court. Is this not a case of systemic weakness for such to happen when some of those stolen from have died due to lack of finance to cater for their old age health challenges? When we have goat thieves,
Prosecuted.
greatest of all time thieves, prosecuted speedily and with maximum sentence, and economic thieves stealing billions, either being given plea bargain, which allows them to keep part of the loot without going to prison, long prosecution time, or even getting away due to influence on the judicial system. Can this be justice? There's this other one from Sunday Akinyemi. Says, my take on this discussion: corruption in Nigeria and most part of Africa is a lot cultural and not just an emergence. The larger the population, the wider the spread. It's a firm believer that you get wealth, power, or positions for your own benefit, and not for the good of the people. Even when they seem to use such for the people, it is mostly a means to control the people for selfish interest. This had happened too often.
Yeah.
How do you stop a culture?
Well, I know that we will not get to the end of this discussion today, and that's exactly what has happened because we've gone completely out of time. This discussion on Nigeria will not stop just like that. The fight will continue, and we hope that even government will begin to put things in place to discourage people from easily just dipping their hands into the till and doing all those things that are putting us on the corruption index, in the positions that we are on the corruption perception index.
That's it. That's it.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Dakpo Akinyosho, and legal practitioner, Mr. John Oluwole.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming to share your thoughts with us this morning.
Pleasure's all mine.
And thank you for staying with us. You at home will be back in about 2 minutes with another very interesting conversation. Do be sure to join us.